What's the most creative way you've seen someone ruin a greedy person's financial future? My uncle is a quiet genius when it comes to numbers. He worked for a large real estate development firm, buried in spreadsheets and projections, and never made much noise. But behind the scenes, he was the one steering the company's financial decisions. Though his boss, the CFO, took all the credit. This CFO was slick, arrogant, and loved flaunting wins that weren't his. For years, he used my uncle's financial strategies to wow board members, while keeping my uncle underpaid and invisible. Everyone assumed he was the mastermind behind the company's success. Meanwhile, my uncle kept his head down and did the work. But one day, while reviewing some investor account data, my uncle noticed something off. Small discrepancies at first, numbers that didn't add up. He dug deeper and discovered that the CFO had been skimming money from investor funds and quietly siphoning it into offshore accounts. It wasn't tens of millions, but it was enough to be criminal, enough to ruin lives if it ever exploded. Now, most people would report it straight to the authorities. My uncle didn't. Instead, he decided to set a trap. He began feeding the CFO subtle suggestions. At lunch one day, while discussing internal controls, he casually said, "You know, with your experience, you could probably move a bit more without anyone catching on. I mean, who'd even know?" That single line worked better than expected. Over the next 6 months, the CFO grew bolder. He increased the amount he was stealing, moved money more frequently, and made sloppier decisions. My uncle tracked every single transaction, dates, amounts, where the money landed, who approved what. He kept records that would make an auditor weep from joy. But he didn't stop there. He quietly created a new financial tracking system, a clean, intuitive tool that clearly showed where every dollar should be at any given time. Then, during a board strategy session, he introduced it under the guise of modernizing the company's reporting tools, called it an accountability dashboard. The board loved it. They started referencing it in meetings. Some even requested read-only access to monitor department budgets. It quickly became the unofficial source of truth for the company's financials, all while the CFO had no idea he was walking deeper into a trap. Then came the annual financial review. The CFO walked into that boardroom beaming. Probably thought he'd coast through another slideshow, say a few buzzwords, and be back on the golf course by noon. But this time, my uncle volunteered to present the numbers. Said he'd been working on some side-by-side comparisons to improve reporting clarity. He clicked to the first slide, 2 columns, one showing the official numbers the CFO had reported, the other showing what the numbers should have been according to the new system. Discrepancies, $4.7 million. "There seems to be a few accounting errors," my uncle said, sounding almost apologetic. "We've cross-referenced these with prior year audits and current transactions. This wasn't a software glitch. These were intentional misallocations." The room went silent. The CFO started stammering about possible database corruption, but my uncle kept going. He had emails. He had login timestamps. He even had phone call recordings. He didn't raise his voice once. He let the documents do the talking. When the presentation ended, the board sat in stunned silence. The CFO was fired on the spot. Within a week, he was indicted. Apparently, this wasn't the first time he'd pulled something like this, just the first time someone had nailed him so precisely. They found multiple offshore accounts under fake shell companies, with wire trails going back years. Some of the funds had already been laundered, but a large chunk was recoverable. And my uncle, he was appointed as the new CFO before the month ended.